The Nerdosphere is brought to you by patrons, just like Dave Salvaggio and Darren Prumer. Go to patreon.com/the Nerdosphere to find out how you can support the show. Hello and welcome to the Nerdosphere. I'm one of your hosts, Clayton, joined as always by COVID Bane Corbin, best palate of this side of the Mississippi.
Hi, what's up? I was gonna be like, hello there, how are you doing today? But your slip up made me slip up.
I didn't slip up.
You said COVID Bane, the pregnant pause. Best palate, biggest palate of the side of the Mississippi.
I didn't say that. I'm also joined tonight by Hamilton Stan. Miss me with all that anime. Maybe not soon.
Anymore.
Tim, welcome.
How's it going, guys? I was gonna say, Corbin's intro. Maybe we should add like best mustache this side of the Mississippi too, because it's looking pretty good right now.
It's looking good, right?
Pretty.
Now without effort, because the masks damage my facial hair, so I've had to work extra hard to revitalize this thing and keep it alive.
I'm glad you brought this up. I wore my glasses to work for the first time in who knows how long, because I always wear contacts. We've had this conversation on the podcast before. Corbin says contacts are too high maintenance for him, which is ridiculous. I went into Walmart that same day and had to wear a mask, because they require you to wear a mask to go to Walmart. I couldn't see fucking shit, dude. My glasses were fogged up the entire time. I was like, I gotta get out of here. I can't shop like this. I can't live like this.
Shit.
What are you talking about? Wearing a mask with glasses is the easiest shit. Anyone who complains about it,
your shit fogs up.
No, it don't. Well, first of all, what kind of mask are you using? Using a cloth mask or a cloth mask, or are you using like a surgical mask?
Just a mask. It's cloth.
I mean, I can't really speak too much on the cloth. I wear the surgical masks. I work at Walgreens, so I have a huge supply of them. But those you pinch at the top, so when you exhale, it creates an exhaust port through the bridge. It's pretty simple.
You must not have the lung capacity that I have, because there ain't no bridging.
That is true. He did have COVID.
There ain't no bridging.
Anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I am nothing but short of hot air. So do not at me with that challenge.
There's a difference between hot air and lung capacity, my friend.
Hot air is good.
How long can you hold your breath? How long can you hold your breath?
Now, I will say at work yesterday, I already failed. At work yesterday, we had to give a unique talent. And I said my unique talent is being able to hold my breath for 15 seconds and not feel uncomfortable.
Then everybody else felt uncomfortable because it's not a talent at all.
Just like us. There was that weird awkward pause. Or it's like,
wow, that is talent.
Okay, thank you.
Well, those questions are stupid and you know it. Actually, my hidden talent is I can sound like Beast Boy and Kermit the Frog. Isn't that great? Oh my God.
You should.
Good for you. My talent is that I can squeeb, and then I only need to use one towel.
Mm-hmm. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about movies we love that are actually terrible. The best, worst movies. Wow.
This whole night's ruined.
Wow.
And then I started thinking about that text the other night. My ancestors must have been with me.
Oh my God.
It's okay. People want to hang out with us, Clayton. You got quit being such a tight butthole. Loosen up your butthole. Loosen it up. Boys night. When are we making it?
People don't want to listen to 30 seconds of near
that is not actually not true. I have heard
laughter.
from 4 people. I've heard from 4 people that has specifically said that Tim's laugh is infectious. And on the Nerd Tea episode where he flipping lost it, they were crying because his laugh is infectious. So yeah, in fact, our podcast from now on should just be a looped laugh.
Just me laughing. Just me laughing. Clayton saying, "It doesn't exist. It's not a thing."
I do think that you probably need to say the topic again.
Tonight, we're talking about the best, worst movies. So we each pick 3 movies that have a terrible rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Stipulation was below 60%, the lower the better, but 60% was where we chose because it's kind of hard on both critics and audience. But we enjoy, that we like. Okay? So 3 bad movies that we like. That's the topic tonight. That's what we're going to be getting into. Before we jump into that, if you didn't know, this is the Nerdosphere. We're a podcast that talks about
nothing.
Why'd you stop?
Well, you lifted your thing, and then I brain farted.
I'm choosing to the audience.
I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying you distracted me. So
sorry,
it's your fault.
I get very. So you are blaming me. Fudge, dude. Come on. I want White Claw to sponsor us. Tim, make it happen, and I'm going to keep talking about them. The Claw's Law. And they make me happy. Not that you should turn to alcohol for happiness. I'm just saying, if you didn't know, this is the Nerdosphere.
Yeah. So are you gonna continue?
Despite the fact that I've been doing this podcast with Clayton for 3 years now, I don't have his spiel memorized at all. I do try to mime it though. When he's doing it.
Okay, go ahead.
I like to make funny faces.
Go ahead and mime it while he does it.
Here we go. We're a podcast where we discuss anything you can nerd out about, from the big screen to the small screen, and anything in between. From the big screen to the small screen, if you can nerd out about it, we're going to talk about it. If it's movies, books, shows, even music, if you can nerd out about it, we're going to talk about it. All right.
Should we just start over?
No, this is
the worst opening ever. No,
I'm serious. This is great.
It's not great.
I actually think it is. This is great.
The laughter distracted me.
Yeah, you screwed up the preamble there.
I messed up the intro, which I never do.
It's okay. This stuff, it keeps us grounded, and I think leaving this stuff in sometimes adds up. My favorite moments of like P.S. I Love You is when like someone would like go to the door because a delivery happened, and the other person was just like BSing in the mic.
Yeah,
this is okay. You don't. It's fine.
Remember, you can find us on podcast services around the globe. You can also find us at YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook. Just search the Nerdosphere and you will find us. If you really like what we do and you want to support us, go over to patreon.com/the Nerdosphere, where you can earn cool perks like joining our book club or joining our watch parties or getting free entries to our weekly trivia, or access to our riff tracks that we're going to be doing soon, or early access to all of our podcasts, or
custom merch. The best perk, maybe.
The best perk. Soon to be best perk, because the only custom merch we have right now is our
producer.
Nope. Tiger King.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that kind of custom merch.
Yeah.
I thought you meant tailored for like the user.
No.
The user.
Access to all of our retired merch, which that one's not retired yet because we don't have another one to replace it yet. But we will soon. So keep your eyes open for more merch coming soon. I got some good ideas.
You need to make a logo for the next podcast we're doing.
I'm not making a logo for that.
Yes, you're a liar then. You said you'd make the logo if he recorded in Audacity today.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate you.
I can't commit until I have the proof. So right now, I'm not doing it. As soon as he sends me the audio and I see, he did record in Audacity. Okay, I'll do it for you.
It's only going to take him 7 days to send it with that dinosaur laptop. So
yeah,
you got some margin there.
It's almost like you don't want our viewers to have more great content and to bring in other new users to our great content. I want them to
have all the content that they want.
Well, you have to make logos for that content. You're the logo guy. You're the logo guy. Tim is the bookkeeper and keeps us on track, kind of. You're the logo guy, kind of. And then I'm the talent, kind of. We are a kind of podcast.
Kind of.
So guys, this is me keeping us on track and throwing us down a rabbit hole as well. But
that woodwick candles are the best. It smells great and also creates nice cathartic.
You do it to me and you do it to Tim. Tim hops in, gets us back on track. The first thing you do.
You're telling me that when you are sitting at home,
wild card,
either watching the YouTube, streaming some sort of something, you would rather listen to a silent candle versus a nice aromatic woodwick candle that crackles, crackles, and relaxes you. Yeah, it's a woodwick candle.
I don't want to listen to a candle. I don't care.
It sounds like Christmas, okay?
It sounds like Christmas.
Yes. It's lovely. Woodwick candles are like, it's funny that they're the future because I feel like it's from something of the past. But all I know is that I need it in the present.
What is this? What's happening right now?
Is that just like off the tongue? Like, did you just like totally just make that up in real time?
Everything I say is in real time except for this notepad.
It's pathetic.
What's going on?
You're so cheesy and it's so natural.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to what I was saying. We're going to talk about 3 bad movies that we think are actually good movies or that we enjoy to watch. But before we go into that, we haven't done very many tangents about other things that we're watching or reading or listening to. And I have to take a second to plug what I think is going to be the best TV show that I watch all year. It's called Defending Jacob. It's on Apple TV, which I would never have even looked at Apple TV had I not been giving a free 12 months when I got my new phone. So I haven't watched anything on Apple TV. I saw the trailer for it. It looked pretty good. We binged that show in like 2 nights, which is not like us at this stage of our life. I stayed up till almost 3 a.m. watching the show, which these guys know, like past 10 o'clock, and it's probably not happening for me. But it was dang good. It's like, it's must watch TV. If you like thrillers, if you like crime dramas, if you like murder mysteries, it's the perfect show. So you guys find a way. You guys can sign up for a free trial membership through Apple. You'll watch it within 7 days. It's that good. So Apple TV, Defending Jacob. I'm now reading the book, which is also very good so far. You guys have to head over to Apple TV. And now I'm actually going to explore Apple TV's content because this was so much better than what I expected from Apple TV for it being an original. I had set the bar very low in my head. And I will say that the quality of Defending Jacob is better than the quality of the best Netflix originals. So it's dang good. Dang good.
If I don't finish it in 7 days, based on your suggestion, are you going to pay for the monthly hit?
It's $4.99, and you would pay $4.99 to watch this show. I promise you. If you are into murder mysteries, you would pay $4.99 to watch the show. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. It's got Chris Evans in it. He's freaking ridiculously good in it. And it's got the kid from It, the kid who played Bill, the kid who stuttered. And he is creepy as fuck in it. So head on over there. If you're looking for something to watch, check out Defending Jacob.
Okay.
Check out
It's funny when you say things like it's probably going to be the best show I've watched all year. My knee-jerk reaction is to be like, what a fucking bold statement that is. But then I also think like nothing's coming out this year, and I also think about how I think we talked about our most anticipated content for the year of 2020 at the beginning of the year, and how we were going to revisit those things and see how they ended up panning out. And like over half our lists have just been like atomized.
It's going to be a depressing end of year review. It just is.
Did you guys see that Tenet is going to go ahead and come out to theaters though, August 26th?
So for now,
now. They're releasing it on demand and in theaters same day.
Okay, so we haven't revisited this topic since we did like as COVID was starting and how we predicted things would like play out. But literally at this point in the game, I think that most studios don't have anything to lose with releasing it for either a high rent cost or streaming services. I personally think that they should be at a high rent cost. I would pay $40 to watch Black Widow with the understanding that there's no way I'm going to go to theaters anytime soon. And it's probably a cost they might need to have to recoup the per ticket cost that they're going to lose at the box office. But the trends have only shown that anytime a movie is severely delayed, it's impossible to get the hype train back. And one of the biggest examples is like King Arthur Legend of the Sword was a movie that got delayed a year after it had run its publicity run through the media blitz. So by the time it actually came out, everyone had forgotten about it. And movies like Mulan, Black Widow, even Tenet, even if theaters were to open and you could go see it, it's not going to have the same turnout because people are either nervous about going back or it's just not on the radar to be that excited about. So I really think that at this point, studios need to actually be looking at how can we release this for a digital rent and what is a reasonable price that people will pay, but will still get money for.
I kind of think this year is unique, so I don't think that the typical losing your hype train is going to apply to this, because when they finally do set a new date for these movies, especially the Disney movies, they're going to build the hype back up. They're going to pour more money into marketing. They will.
People aren't going to go.
You don't know that.
It just depends on when they release.
If they release Black Widow May of 2021, COVID's 6 months behind us, and they've been hyping it up for 3 months, people are going to go see it, and it's going to have the same turnout. Now you're going to have less return for your money because you probably spent more money on marketing, but
is what it is.
Yeah. My counter to that, though, is I personally don't think that this is going to happen in the near future. But even building up to Infinity War, the talk on the town was Marvel burnout. When is there going to be a Marvel burnout? So you say, Clayton, yeah, let's build up the hype train again. Let's say it doesn't work out so well because it's just kind of hard to get that hype train back. And maybe people are still trepidatious about going to the theaters. People now say Black Widow is the pinnacle example of Marvel burnout. And while that statement might factually be not true, given the circumstances of the situation, it then becomes a negative seed of thought that starts to permeate in the casual moviegoers, and we could see an implosion.
You could say that same thing for when the digital release doesn't bring in the money that it would have in a theater. That same argument can be applied to whatever they do.
There's only been positive return from any movie that's released digitally. I refuse to believe that if Black Widow came out for a digital release,
if there's only been positive return, or that if it was worth it, you would see much more of it. We haven't seen a whole lot. Yeah, in fact, since the initial release back in March and April, we haven't seen really any. So to me says that companies did not see a well enough return for it to be worth it. Yeah, or you would see more people doing it.
The counter to
market spoke.
Everything that's been out has been either a C-level movie that people weren't going to see anyway. Like, what was the Vin Diesel movie, Bloodborne, or I don't know,
Bloodshot or something.
Whatever. It looked awful. Nobody was going to go see that anyway. Or a kids movie, right? Yeah. And I think the kids movies have done okay, but will the equation change if you get Ghostbusters or Black Widow or one of these other movies that comes out? And I think you're going to have to wait for somebody's going to have to like take the leap of faith and say, you know what, we made a good movie.
Tenet is going to be Tenet's releasing on demand and in theaters same day, August 26th. So we'll see how that goes. That's the first real big one.
But that's not the same caliber of the Ghostbusters or Marvel.
The next Christopher Nolan movie.
It's a good barometer. It's a fair barometer.
It's going to be a fair barometer.
Dunkirk was not a huge success, and it bored most people. So, if anything,
but this is going back to like Christopher Nolan, where he's is best at. Like it's a kind of a supernaturally different kind of movie. Dunkirk was just a historical drama.
I mean, let's be real. I just pulled up the numbers. Dunkirk had a budget of 100 million and it made 527 million. It did pretty damn well. $500 million movies. Not bad.
And a lot of it's the subject matter does matter. Like he was passionate about telling the story of Dunkirk, so he made that movie. Now we're getting back to this is the next actual Christopher Nolan movie. Like he wrote this, he's directing it. Mm-hmm. People are going to want to see it.
The other thing that's come out, I know I sent you guys the article, and I know a lot of people have probably missed the news, but Universal and AMC, they're friends again, right? So we had AMC essentially pulling out saying like, hey, we don't want to, we're not going to show your guys' movies anymore. I don't know if it was Universal or WB that they initially butted heads over, but they said, hey, you know what? You guys are going to start doing everything video on demand, then we're not going to show your movies when things open back up. Yeah. Well, they struck a new deal yesterday where Universal will still put movies in theaters and AMC will still show them, but the contract allows for them to go video on demand within 2 weeks of debuting in a theater. And it looks like that's a long-term contract. So we really have probably seen the tide shift where we're going to get what we were hoping for when we did our initial podcast, the choice of, do I want to go to a movie theater and pay a premium for the experience? Or would I rather wait 2 weeks and watch it from home for a fraction of the cost and control my own experience? I think the deal with Universal and AMC is the first major step to that becoming a reality post-COVID.
And we'll also, the pricing is going to be a big deal too. So we'll see how Tenet performs. Because you could buy or rent Trolls, for example, for $20, which I'm telling overall that's cheaper.
A Blockbuster, $40 is easy change.
But I'm not going to pay that. I'm not paying $40 to see Black Widow.
You also don't see a lot of movies in theaters.
I mean that's true, but I would have gone to see Black Widow.
Yeah, so these studios have kind of screwed themselves over because.
And it's more of a mindset because I could end up paying total that evening more than $40 to go see the movie. But I look at renting movies, and if it's more than if a movie's like $8 to rent, I'm like, fuck that shit. Like I'm not renting that movie; it's too expensive. So if you say $40, even though it's brand new, my mind says, nah, that's too much.
I guess for me, my mind says it's a luxury item to stream a brand new release at home, so I don't mind what the cost is.
So here's where they've screwed themselves over. It's people like me that watch for a deal. So some movies that I was interested in renting, The Invisible Man, wanted to rent it. Sticker shock. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do it. Scoob, same thing. Scoob was even better than The Invisible Man. So The Invisible Man, I think, was just like $20 flat fee. You can rent it, not the movie itself, just the deal.
Okay. Scoob, I was like,
no,
whoa,
significantly different. Scoob was $20 for video on demand or $25, and you can own it and watch it as much as you want starting that day. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like you can watch it for the 48-hour window and then you have the copy when it's released. It was like, no, you can own it for $25 and watch it 100 times in the next month if you want to. Scoob came out in June, I think it's June. I decided to wait. I bought Scoob yesterday for $9.99 on sale, video on demand, just through Vudu. Like you can buy Invisible Man. I bought 2 weeks ago for $10. So like they've kind of screwed themselves over by dropping the price so quickly after the video on demand experience. So you have people like me. I won't spend $40 to watch Black Widow because so far history has shown me that if I just wait one extra month, I can buy it for like $10 and own it.
Yeah.
Now they might change that philosophy completely when you get a big time movie, but until I see that, I'm going to be pretty timid on buying a $40
movie. That's a delicate balance for them to accomplish as well, because you've obviously those sales are happening because they've seen their sales just tank.
Yep.
So, all right, we're going to drop the price, get our sales, continue that return. But at the same time, you've got people like you. There's probably a good number of people like you who wait until that happens. So you gotta kind of have to,
It's a tough place for studios to be in right now.
Yep.
There's just no other way to slice it. It's interesting to see movies being picked up by like Apple TV. I kind of already plugged, but like the Tom Hanks movie Greyhound was supposed to be video on demand, or was supposed to be in the box office this year. Then it was going to be video on demand, and then Apple TV just bought the rights to it. And that's a brilliant idea if it brings people to Apple TV. So I'd like to see more people try to go video on demand and see if you see, what's the NBC streaming app going to be called?
Peacock.
You're going to see these places pick it up and say, you know what, let's see. And it's probably going to end up being a good deal for both sides.
You know what Disney should do is they should have this weekend between 8 and 10 or 8 midnight on Saturday.
No way.
If you have Disney Plus, you can watch this brand new movie.
Yeah, but then it would crash.
I still like my idea from the last podcast.
Not necessarily.
It'd be like weekend one or when The Mandalorian launched. When The Mandalorian launched, Disney Plus had been out for a little bit of time. And it was, you could still tell if you were watching it like day one of a new episode.
Yeah. I could tell when I watched Hamilton. I watched Hamilton the day it came out, and it was a little slow. But I still love my idea. Disney Plus should release Mulan, and they can create a separate type of account and say, hey, if you re-up for us for 12 months, you can watch Mulan. If you're not interested in re-upping, fine. We're not going to put Mulan on the platform now. You can give premium content for those who are willing to commit 12 months.
Yeah. Or have a higher tier.
A ton of sense. Yeah.
You could have just a higher tier.
Yeah. I'd pay $15 a month for Disney Plus if they were going to be putting Mulan and some other movies on there. Sure.
Yeah. All right. Great talk. A little more serious than I was expecting for our chit chat section, but it was good nonetheless.
None of you commented on my hair.
What the fuck do I need to comment on your hair about?
What's different? It looks the same.
It looks great. I got retouched. I got redone.
Redone.
I haven't had it done since before I had COVID. I had like basically normal blonde hair. I re-whited my hair.
Congratulations. So tonight we're going to be talking about our 3 favorite worst movies. As we said in the opening, the stipulation was on Rotten Tomatoes, both critics and audience scores had to be below 60%. But we still like it. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll be a part of the vast majority of people that don't like these movies that we list. But we're going to talk about it anyway. Because,
I think Brahms has to poop, which means he's going to have an accident, which is okay.
Just pass him your Viking mug.
It's what you okay with him having an accident?
We're in the middle of a podcast. Can we step out and walk out for 15 minutes?
We're in the middle of a podcast. Brahms, just take a shit over there on the carpet, boy.
It'd be better if you can get that on camera in the background.
I mean, do you mind if I let him out real quick? He definitely has to go.
It's whatever, dude. We'll chop this up, man. The audience will never know, except I'm not going to edit it out. So they will know.
Okay. Uncle Clayton says you can potty, Proms. No, don't do that. Don't go potty. Don't go potty yet.
So Clayton, we had this idea. We put it on Patreon. Again, if you guys don't know about Patreon, we've got tons of great benefits. One of those benefits is that you can help decide what we record. So our executive level patrons, they can just pick a topic once in a while and say, hey, you guys, I want you to do this, and we'll do it.
Yep.
But if that's too rich for you, we put polls out there and say, hey, here are 3 topics we're kicking around. What do you guys want to hear? And if it wins, that's what we're going to go with. And so this won, and I was super excited about it. But then I realized it's a pretty hard challenge because there's a whole lot of movies that I love that critics hate. That's pretty easy for me to find.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to find a movie that's rotten from both.
Yep.
So it took me a long time to figure out my list, but I think I got the right list.
Same.
You want me just to kick it off here?
Yeah, go ahead and start. Okay. I had a few honorable mentions, but I'm not going to talk about them because we talked about them off the podcast, and there's no point to talk about honorable mentions. But like you said, there is a ton. Like, for instance, The Road, which is a great book and I think great movie. Critics, I think, didn't like it, but audience was at like 70%.
Just barely.
I was like, man, that's such a good movie. And there's movies that really surprise you. Like, the way I figured mine out, or at least how I started, was I go over, and I don't buy movies anymore, but I've got, like you, I've got a collection like on a bookshelf. So I went and I just started Rotten Tomatoing all the movies that I actually own. And that's how I got started.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's
I'm pulling
hard.
up what got me started, and I can't get it to find right now, and I don't want to be beating on my laptop while we're recording here. But what got me starting to think about it was we were talking about Nick Cage on a podcast recently.
Yeah.
And Nick Cage is the king of making B movies. And one of his B movies that I love is Gone in 60 Seconds. I'm like, there's no way. Like, I rewatched it. I still loved it, but there's no way this movie's still fresh. It was like a turd from critics. It was like super low, but audiences, it was like 90% fresh. So
right.
it's shocking to me how skewed the audience can be. And I think I probably align with the audience more times than not, especially with a lot of things I looked at. But I'm going to kick us off with what I think is the steal of the show.
Okay. What is it?
A movie that I cannot believe is rotten from both.
Tell me so I can search it.
It's Twister.
Oh, okay. That's the one I have up first.
Yeah. So Twister, do you have it pulled up?
Yep. I got it.
You want to read it off there?
Yep. Twister has a 57% from critics. That's 54 critics rating it that bad. Now, out of 894,000 audience reviews, we got an audience score of 58%.
It blows my mind. And the only thing that makes sense is that Rotten Tomatoes probably really wasn't even a thing when this movie came out. I would have thought that critics loved Twister. It was a Spielberg movie. I mean, like, the effects actually, like, they were revolutionary at the time. And as I sit down and watch it, the effects are mostly still pretty good.
Came out in 1996.
There's not very many moments where I'm like cringing at how bad the effects are. Like,
well, it's so good that Universal Studios has a Twister experience where they show you how they did certain practical effects on set. So like, if it was a total bomb, as far as like really no one liked it, they wouldn't have put the money into creating that experience at the theme park. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really surprised that this movie was rotten from both, especially surprised that people don't look back at that movie with rose-tinted glasses and say, man, that's such a good movie. Because, like, if I look backwards and I were to start writing down movies that I remember watching as a kid, like, that were a big deal for me to watch, Twister's on that list. It's there with Jurassic Park. Like, I remember that movie being a big deal, us having to go see it in a theater, us going to see it, us buying it on VHS the day it came out. Like, it was a big deal movie. It had a big deal cast. It had Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. So solid acting. And the movie's really not that cheesy on a rewatch. I don't know. My mind's blown. I don't know if you guys will be able to top that, because to me, that's a legit good movie.
Yeah, I actually texted and asked if it was on anybody's list because it's on Netflix right now, and actually it's going off on the 1st. So if you want to rewatch Twister, like hop on Netflix and watch it like right now because it's getting ready to leave. But we rewatched that, and my youngest 2 boys are like obsessed with it. Like it's for great. The last week, every night they've asked to watch it. Can we watch Twister? And then like they've already got it memorized. Like we're sitting there watching it, and like when the 2 small tornadoes come in and they call them the sisters, Finn, my 3-year-old, goes the sisters as they come in, and then the movie starts talking about the sisters. I'm like, man, you've been watching this too much. But that movie, it's good, and when it's cheesy in like a funny, good way. Like I'm not watching this because it's bad cheesy funny. Like it's good cheesy funny, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like a wholesome cheesiness.
Like dudes, like they're driving, and then you got what's his name? Kari Yules. How do you say his name? Kari Yules.
Mm-hmm.
The dude who plays the main guy in Princess Bride.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyways, because he's the bad guy. And so they're driving alongside, and the fiance is asking Bill Paxton, who is that guy? He's like, oh, we used to be in a lab together, but he left for corporate sponsorships. He's in it for the money, not the science. It's like, this movie, let's go. He's in it for the money, not the science.
I can't say that on my list I have one that is a jaw dropper like that, but I remember I wrote down honorable mentions because this topic was hard to get going for me. Mm-hmm. But once I started down like a rabbit hole, I started to find like gems. Like Ace Ventura Pet Detective meets this list. It's like one of Jim Carrey's most iconic roles. And I never have heard it talked about being a cult classic. Like people have just always loved it. But it had a 48% critic score and a 57% audience score. So I mean, that's an 80s classic.
Which movie did you say? I'm sorry, Jody's texting me Animal Crossing stuff. I had to pause and look so she doesn't screw my island up.
So first of all, it came out in 95. So it's not an 80s classic.
90s yeah, that's mid 90s.
72 audience score.
No, you're looking at the second one. The first one.
Is When Nature Calls not the first one?
Nope.
No, that's the second one.
Sorry.
Pet Detective's the first one.
Oh.
I will tell you that movie does not hold
94.
up well to me.
Sorry, 94. Oh, God. Here we go. 57%. Yeah.
I already said that.
On audience.
Written down for a reason.
Well, I'm pulling it up for the audience to see, Corbin. We don't all have your Lego pad sitting in front of us, okay? Some of us like look at things.
Are you sharing the screen to the audience?
Sure am. You went to take Brahms on a poop and you missed out.
Oh, yeah, he only peed too, so he's definitely going to shit during this podcast.
Good boy.
All right, so good way to start us off, Tim. Corbin, why don't you give us one?
Okay. I have to say, shout out to Macy, who kind of sometimes listens to the podcast, but he was really kind of helping me build my list when we were working in the pharmacy because I didn't know where to start. And he had a recommendation, and it almost made my list. If anyone is listening, you have to watch this movie. This is like the honorable mention of the show. It's called The Sphere. It stars Dustin Hoffman, has Samuel L. Jackson, and has that weird guy that plays Sabretooth that's like always in everything, but he's not always in great stuff. The Sphere has a 12% critic score and a 38% audience score.
It's based off. Is it called The Sphere?
It's called The Sphere. It is based off a novel written by the same guy that wrote the Jurassic Park novel, which is like something Kreichner or something. And it's basically just like a sphere lands on Earth, or they basically find potentially an alien spacecraft below the water surface. Dustin Hoffman plays kind of like a Poindexter guy.
There's no the.
It's just Sphere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's amazing the little scrunchy face you make sometimes over the stupidest stuff. But Dustin Hoffman basically wrote a bill for the original Bush administration, like what you would do if there was like ever alien life found. And so like a team is built based off of his suggestions. And it's it's great from start to finish. It's not campy. It's very charming. And it's just really good classic sci-fi. I was astounded at how awful the scores were. But Sphere, everyone needs to go watch Sphere. It's free on Amazon Prime. Just go stream it. It's 95 minutes long, I think. But for me...
That's actually, real quick, that's a really, really good segue, because Michael Crichton wrote Jurassic Park. He wrote Sphere. And he also wrote Twister.
Wow. How about that?
He owned the mid-90s. Totally owned it.
Not according to Rotten Tomatoes, he was the pits. All right, but my number one pick is Reign of Fire. This movie came out in 2002. It has a critic score of 42% and an audience score of 49%. The director was Rob Bowman, who directed the original X-Files movie and a lot of X-Files shows. He also directed Elektra, but we're not going to talk about that. And it stars this cast. It stars Christian Bale, Gerard Butler, and Matthew McConaughey. This is like the holy trinity of early 2000s. This movie is about basically like these oil miners unearth a dragon that's been slumbering near the Earth's core for forever. And it comes out and they start breeding, and it becomes a post-apocalyptic world set 20 years after they unearth the dragon. And the dragons have now overbred and overpopulated. The humans are barely hanging on to survival, trying to figure out how to yield crops, hoping they could just survive the dragons, because they know they're starting to starve off. This movie in concept is fucking phenomenal. One, it takes place in Scotland, which I think is really key to the setting, because the main characters are held up in like an old castle that they have like lights strung through and stuff. So aesthetically, it is kind of like a modern medieval fantasy. If this movie took place in like New York City or something, there's just kind of like, there's an aesthetic that's lost. The fact that they're in dreary Scotland, they are fighting off dragons and surviving in a castle while also like using tanks and helicopters and shit. It's cool. I honestly think this movie is just a crime of the time. There is a little bit of cheese. The special effects incredibly hold up still to this day. But I just don't think the world was ready for this kind of movie. I think now, post like Game of Thrones and stuff with dragons, man, I think the audience will be ripe for this content.
The world was definitely not ready, because it had a budget of $60 million, only brought in $82 million worldwide.
But I'm telling you, this movie is so worth your time. It's not a guilty pleasure. It's so good.
It's good.
And
okay,
definitely took a poop. It's good.
Good job.
Reign of Fire. Thank you,
Clayton.
All right,
first on your list.
My first one is gonna be The Wolfman, and we're talking Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins, 2010. The Wolfman.
And Hugo Weaving. This is a star-studded cast.
Emily Blunt.
I forgot she was in it.
Who else we got here?
Javier Bardem.
Asa Butterfield, that kid who starred in Bender's Game. Is that movie? What's that?
Ender's Game.
Ender's Game. Bender.
Which I will say, David Savaggio was telling me like how the novel actually goes, and the novel sounds really good. I feel bad for fans of the novel that got that movie, because the movie was garbage.
I just slid in Javier Bardem and nobody scolded me like the last time I...
No, the audience saw me look at you.
There was a whole debate in I don't know, it's been like a month, 3 or 4 months ago when I rewatched that, and you guys scolded me for saying that.
Yeah, because that's a totally different actor.
They look so similar, though.
They're really don't.
They're the same person.
They're not at all.
Which one's better? Who's a better actor?
Now, I think that some people might scoff at this, but I think Benicio del Toro is a better actor. I think he's in more cool. I think he's in more cool shit and shows more diversity. Javier Bardem only gets street cred for Is it No Country for Old Men?
No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
I mean, he almost won Best Actor for that. I mean, he was incredible.
I always get that one and another one that Daniel Day-Lewis was in around the same time. Oil.
Was he in Will There Be Blood?
Yes. I always get those two titles mixed up because it came out around the same time and had the same kind of hype.
Yeah.
So, yes.
But anyways,
I'll say the opposite. I'll say Del Toro's better.
I said Del Toro.
Oh, I mean the other guy.
You really
They're both the same. They're the same freaking guy.
Oh my god.
They're the same guy.
I had to mute myself because my boy came in asking help with Pokemon. But this is my number one pick, so I really enjoyed this movie. I think the cast does a really great job. I don't know. I really liked it. So kind of thrilling, kind of creepy. So
yeah, it's
great. It even starts with the original Universal's logo.
Yeah,
which I loved.
I thought that was so cool.
I was super surprised. I don't think you were here, Corbin, but I was talking about how I started my list was to go through and just search all the movies that I have on Blu-ray still. And I have this movie on Blu-ray, and I wasn't expecting it. The total score, I don't think I mentioned it because I got distracted with my boy, but 34 critics, 33 audience.
It does not deserve that at all.
No.
I know it gets a lot of flack for the VFX of the transformation itself, especially because the original Wolfman was such a victory in special effects for like makeup and shit.
Yeah.
But it did not deserve that scolding of a review. It's really good.
Yeah. It's worth it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Universal movies. I mean, you guys could probably see I'll adjust my camera. I've got like models of all the classic Universals. That's kind of what inspired my first love of movies. So I went into it with huge hopes, and it didn't let me down, which when you look at a lot of the horror movies that came out around that time that were trying to remake Universal stuff, they largely disappointed me. So yeah, I agree. The acting's good. It's more brutal than what you would expect, but it's a solid flick.
Yeah. Had a $150 million budget, only brought in 82 domestic. 61 domestic, so
that's bad.
I don't have the world in front of me.
That's really bad.
140 total, so didn't even make back its budget.
Not good. See, I was actually surprised that we were going to get what was it going to be called? The Dark Universe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost put that mummy on my list just to spark the conversation that I think the Dark Universe had potential, and I'm kind of upset that Universal pulled out so quick. I think that you can make an argument that they could have chose a better launching pad film because the Brendan Fraser mummies are still beloved and still fresh in our minds. So it's a weird one to remake, even if it was a part of the grand scheme of things. I think if you chose a more obscure property like either Frankenstein or the Creature of the Black Lagoon, that would have been a better place to start. But the concept of it all, with Russell Crowe being Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and him launching this organization to just hunt down the abnormal and obscure, it's cool, and it hits all of like the nerdy notes that I love in a movie. They chose the wrong movie to launch it, and they got scared, and I'm kind of upset about it.
Russell Crowe's Jekyll and Hyde was awesome and unexpected. I didn't think that was going to be in that movie.
So, and not to get too far off on a tangent, but I've heard that it's possible that it comes back pretty quickly because Blumhouse did The Invisible Man, which is a Universal property. Granted, their spin significantly different than what Universal had, but that movie did really well. All things considered, it was a critical success. Fans like it. I think it did okay in box office considering the COVID timeframe. And now Blumhouse has picked up Dracula, and there's rumors that they're going to use the Blumhouse Dracula to try to revive the Dark Universe. So who knows if that's true, but I certainly hope it is true because I agree. I think the idea kicks a lot of ass.
I don't buy into that. I don't put a lot of stock into that, honestly. Just considering the vibes. Like, yeah, Blumhouse brokered that deal, and we know that Ryan Gosling or whatever is going to be in their Wolfman adaptation. But The Invisible Man is such a modern, grounded, gritty adaptation to the concept of what an Invisible Man could be. Like, obviously, even the original Universal Monster Invisible Man movie isn't that great of an adaptation of the book, but this remake is like so far removed that I don't really see it jiving with what they were trying to do with the Dark Universe.
Well, maybe that one doesn't.
Maybe
what they were saying is that's not going to be part of the Dark Universe because it doesn't align. But Blumhouse proved that they can take a property that other studios have thought is dead and find a fresh way to spin it. So I don't think that the Invisible Man that we saw should fit inside that Dark Universe, though, because it's just different. I don't want to give any spoilers away. It just doesn't fit.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. All right, Tim, what's your next one, bud?
Yeah, so the next one, I led with what I thought is a really good movie, and I still think it's a great movie. And now I'm going to come back with one that does not hold up at all, but I still freaking love it. And it is Freddy versus Jason.
Oh my God.
It's terrible. It is terrible, but I love it because you get a great epic monster fight, and I'm all about monster fights. The fighting scenes between Freddy and Jason are A+, but I will tell you, the acting doesn't hold up. Some of the visual effects doesn't hold up. The movie is cheesy as hell. It's downright hard to watch at times. But man, Freddy Krueger versus Jason just tugs at my heartstrings because I grew up watching those guys. And I will say their epic fight scenes at the end, it still holds up. Like their interactions with each other, still really, really good action horror. The rest of the movie's just bad. So I totally understand why it's rotten.
41% critic, 50% audience.
That's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad when you consider that most of the Freddy and Jason movies are fresh from audiences. Now, granted, they're not great. Most of them are like marginal, but they have a really consistent fan base that loves the IP. So you would expect that to be a positive movie, and it tanked.
Yeah.
Looks like Corbin stepped away.
I guess I'll do my next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Clayton's turn. I'm cleaning up a mess.
Oh, so it happened.
It happened everywhere.
Thanks for blessing us by turning your mic off, though. That was nice.
It happened everywhere. All right. So I guess the next one I'll talk about, because I know my third one, Corbin will probably want to talk about a little bit too, is The Immortals, starring Henry Cavill. 43% from critics, 48% from audience. It is the story of shoot, I can't even remember what it's the story of. It's a Greek
sounds really good.
Hang on. It's
I
about
have not seen this.
King Hyperion is the main bad guy, but I'm trying to see who he plays. Oh, Theseus. So he plays Theseus, and Mickey Rourke plays King Hyperion as the bad guy. It is a highly cinematic take on Greek mythological tale, similar to how 300 was super cinematic. I'm actually surprised that more people didn't like this. Like, it's, if I'm being honest, it is a little boring at times, but man, the fight scenes are super gorgeous. And then I'm just a sucker for Greek mythology. I'm a sucker for the Greek gods, which they play a heavy role in this movie. Mickey Rourke maybe wasn't the best choice for a villain in the Greek times, but I don't know, I like Mickey Rourke too, so I just enjoy watching this one.
Which one was this called? The Immortals?
Yes.
I remember that movie. Interesting choice.
It's super cinematic, man. Just for the cinematics alone, it's worth watching. It's gorgeous.
Gorgeous?
Yeah.
You want to talk about awful movies? I tried watching that Egyptian Gods film, the one that had like all white people playing Egyptians, where Gerard Butler was like Horus or whatever.
Yeah.
Yo, that movie's such garbage. Don't watch it.
So should we go with our next ones, Corbin, or are you going to be done cleaning your mess?
I'm almost done.
If you knew If you knew he was going to mess during the podcast, you could have at least waited till the podcast was over to clean it up.
No, Percy stepped in and started tracking poop everywhere.
Okay.
I'm literally running across the apartment cleaning up poop paw prints in the carpet, okay? It's amazing how fast I did this. Okay, I'm coming. That's what she said.
We need your number 2 movie.
Oh God, don't touch anything though.
I got spots all over my hand. I'm as sterile can be. Now.
Get your breath. Good God, Jesus.
And you stuck your finger in your mouth after cleaning up dog shit.
That wasn't the finger I was using. I was doing it in jest. So my number 2 actually kind of surprised me. And
I can hold my breath for 15 seconds and be okay.
What?
Your special talent that we opened up the podcast was about you holding your breath for 15 seconds and being comfortable. You sound like death right now.
I sound like death right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Now try back.
Number 2.
Anyway.
That was actually a pretty solid Batman. You sounded just like him.
So my number 2 is... Anyways.
It's not what we do. It's how we live. It defines us.
Speaking of that name, Tim, I'll tell you after the podcast. I don't want it on the interwebs. It's kind of mean. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna say it. Just remind me of the Batman voice, and I'll tell you the story that I want to tell. So my number 2 choice is The Strangers Prey at Night. This movie came out in 2018. The critic score was 39%, and the audience score was 34%. The director was Johannes Roberts, who is actually tapped to the Resident Evil reboot that's coming out in the semi-near future. But the cast is a very well put together B cast. You have Christina Hendricks, who is best known for her role as Joan in Mad Men. The husband is Martin Henderson, who was the boyfriend in The Ring. It's the only thing you really need to know about him. The oldest son is Louis Pullman, who was the bellhop in Bad Times at the El Royale. Which if you haven't seen that movie is straight fire. It's got John Hamm. It's got what's his name? Who plays the dude?
Oh, look at Clayton right now.
Why is he
Jeff Bridges?
Jeff Bridges.
That he made.
Yeah, he's got Jeff Bridges, and it's got Chris Hemsworth. Oh, so good. And then you have Bailey Madison, who's the daughter, who was the lead actress in Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which was a Guillermo del Toro written film about like little creatures in the vents that came up from the basement of some haunted house or some shit. This movie really surprised me. Because when I was sick with COVID, I was kind of going through a string of movies and just kind of like writing reviews for movies that have been out and are streamable. And Strangers Prey at Night, for me, is not only a cinematic win of the genre that it's a part of, but it's a good time. You know, I wrote in my review that the original Strangers is in the Rolling Stones' greatest 50 horror movies of all time, and it's a beloved classic now. But The Strangers 2, when it came out, needed to reinvent itself. And I think it did that. It became a little bit more self-aware. It amped up the energy. It took a lot away from classic 80s slashers, even like doing classic zoom-ins and stuff. And the soundtrack is straight fire. And so maybe it got dogged on because people were thinking that they wanted to have that same kind of visceral experience of the first one. But my argument is that if they had done anything similar to the first one, it just would have been a cheap sequel because you just weren't going to be able to reinvent the horror of the first one, the psychological terror of like these people were just doing it because they were bored. The characters are believable. It's well acted. Like I said, the soundtrack is super awesome and it starts a lot faster and it's a great adrenaline ride. It's a movie that I cannot stress enough that you have to watch if you love horror movies.
Cool. All right, Tim, what we got on what's your last pick for this
Now, my last one, I
Best
am
movies
shocked,
we
is
love.
Rotten. So I kind of mixed it up. I had a good movie that I would say everybody should watch. And then I've got a cheesy movie that I'd say you have to love the property to really enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
This is another movie, another horror movie that's tied to a beloved property that I think is one of the top 3. I'd say it's probably top 3 in the entire franchise. And it's a long franchise. And that is Halloween H2O. So you look at
that's a good one.
That's a great movie. You look at the franchise, and Michael Myers had a string of films that were they were not good, right? They got really weird. They got far-fetched. They were always far-fetched, but they got really far-fetched. And then you have a period of silence, and then Jamie Lee Curtis comes back to her role as Laurie Strode. And Halloween H2O is a solid slasher film.
Yeah.
It's not just a solid slasher film. It's like a solid movie. Like, the acting's not bad. It hasn't really aged that much, except for I'll say that Josh Hartnett is not a great actor. He's just not good. He's not good in the movie at all.
He's awful.
But the rest of the movie's good. The ending has a great twist that they find a really interesting way to close the loop on when they bring Michael Myers back for the next movie. Halloween H2O is solid Halloween material.
LL Cool J also.
Yeah, LL Cool J's in it. Don't watch the one with Busta Rhymes, though. They looked at it, said LL Cool J's in this. We're going to get Busta Rhymes for the next one. And Busta Rhymes, that movie's just freaking terrible. Awful.
Yeah. I agree, Tim. Audience may not know. I'm also a huge fan of Michael Myers and Halloween. Every Halloween, I rewatch basically all of them. The ones that matter anyways. And I really like this one. It's good. It's got that. There's something about like mid to late 90s slashers. Like I Know You Did Last Summer. Like I actually really like that movie.
Those movies are good. Scream.
Those are good.
Scream. There's just something about those movies, man. I like them.
Yeah, they're really good. And this one fits that mold. It has the same feel. I feel like we get a lot more Michael Myers action in this movie too. Like when you look at the first few, he's really not in them a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. And when he is, some of the kills are just crazy. Like him battling Jamie Lee Curtis. There's a scene where they're in the cafeteria or something like that, and she's rolling underneath tables and he's walking on top of the tables.
Yeah.
That's as good as it gets when you look at slasher films.
Yep. Definitely a good pick. Cool. All right. Well, I'll go for my third one. It is Pain and Gain, starring The Rock and
flashback to our text thread.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg. This is loosely based off of a real story, but it's about 2 steroid bodybuilders who get caught up in doing some criminal activities, and it is unironically funny, and it's just a fun
Michael Bay did that,
man.
Right?
I believe so. Yeah, Michael Bay. So
it is a good time.
I hated it. I think it's terrible. I think it's an awful movie, and I love Dwayne Johnson. I do, and I especially love Mark Wahlberg. And that was in a stretch where I felt like I was real into Mark Wahlberg, and the stuff that was coming out, I was digging. And so I was super excited to see it. And I was like, not only is this not funny, but the story's just not compelling to me at all. I don't understand this pick.
I thought it was funny. I thought it had a good story. It's not nearly as good as Lucky Logan, but that's what I think of when I think of this movie. It's like botched crime capers, so I don't know.
It's a good pick.
I think it's
respect.
I think it's fun and it's worth your time.
100%.
All right, Corbin, what's your last one, dude?
My last one literally shocked me. I was very
literally
upset. My jaw went just a little bit, open just a little bit. Small Soldiers, the better Toy Story, mind you, came out in 1998 with a critic score of 48% and 45% for the audience. It was directed by Joe Dante, who also directed Gremlins and The Howling, which Tim might be familiar with being the horror buff that he is. And the star-studded cast of David Cross, who most millennials know as Tobias Funke from Arrested Development, Dennis Leary, Jay Moore, who basically is just like any blonde schmuck in any 90s film, Gregory Smith, who is like the lead actor in Everwood. Kirsten Dunst was in it. You had Kevin Dunn, who's like the dad in Transformers and a lot of other popular movies in the late 80s, early 90s. You had Phil Hartman, who is a very famous comedian who tragically died. He was the neighbor in Jingle All Over the Way and the Ovaltine guy in Seinfeld. Mm-hmm. And you had Tommy Lee Jones. Like, this cast is like fucking phenomenal. For those who don't know, it's basically about, toys end up coming to life, but it's due to like a military computer chip that brings them to life. And so you have the Gorgonites, who are seeking their home for Gorgon, who are kind of like the monsters. Then you have the U.S. Marines, and the toy line was meant to sell that the monsters were evil and the U.S. military were the good guys. But as it came to life, it was the opposite. But has great humor, and I think it's awesome. And I love collecting those toys more than like any other movie that had toys. I can't believe The Small Soldiers has such a bad rating. And it's not my nostalgia looking back through it. It's a legitimately good movie.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I did love that movie as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to, like, when Tim suggested this, I was perplexed. I thought it would be harder, but the more I dove into it, the more attacked I felt, because when I found a movie that met the criteria, I was like, oh,
how?
How do you not like this movie? This is so good. I mean, clearly it's not good, but it's good. Like, it's worth your time. And that's my biggest thing is, if you haven't seen any of these movies, please go watch them. Don't listen to Rotten Tomatoes. We would never steer you wrong. All these movies that we've suggested tonight are great.
Every single one.
Including Pain and Gain.
Don't see Pain and Gain. Trust me, you'll thank me.
Every single one. I could say the same thing about Freddy versus Jason, but I'm not. I'm suggesting that they go watch it.
But no, but the difference was, I even set that up by saying, you're probably only going to love this if you love those two IPs.
Freddy versus Jason is the same aesthetic as like Jeepers Creepers. It's not great. It's not even good. but the concept is okay enough that you're able to get through it, because you're like, your imagination of what it
Creepers could have been good till the Monster Man flapped his wings. The second that thing opened its wings, I said, what are we watching? What is this? I'm done with this. It could have been okay, because the first one is kind of creepy. You got the Jeepers Creepers.
The first one, he had wings.
At the end, towards the end.
Very end.
Yep, he opened his wings.
I think that's like the cutscene is his wings opening, isn't it?
No, he opens his wings when they think they kill him in the street. Is the first time we see his wings. And he's like, he's trying to get up, and one of his wings comes out and starts flapping a little bit. And
you're thinking of a different one.
I just watched the original Jeepers Creepers with Justin Long, so no, I'm not.
No,
I watched it 3 days ago.
You're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You're wrong.
Anyway,
the concept for Freddy vs. Jason is great. Like,
it is great, and I wish they would revisit it.
The idea of how they got them together, it's really, really well done. So it's just a shame that the rest of the movie was sloppily put together. It's horribly put together at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a shame.
Well, that does it for this week. Let us know what you love but others hate.
I would love to see audience engagement in this. At the very least, I would love our patrons to give us like at least one movie that meets this criteria that we didn't list. Because like I said, when you start looking into it, like The Men Who Stare at Goats was a movie that I love, and it meets this criteria. Like, I think you'd be surprised at movies that you enjoy that no one else apparently does.
Give them a search, see what comes up. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Nerdosphere. Remember, you can find us over at Twitter at NerdosphereCast. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Nerdosphere. You can also join our meme group /nerd group over on Facebook. Just search for The Nerdosphere in groups and come join us. We have lots of sweet discussions, funny discussions, tons of memes, So yeah, it's a fun time. If you really like what we do, go check us out over at patreon.com/the Nerdosphere. Again, we got tons of cool content that you can participate in. That's patron only, as well as getting our podcasts early and ad free. Also, if you're listening on iTunes, scroll down your phone and hit that 5-star rating for us. We would greatly appreciate it. If you're feeling super generous, leave a review. We'll read new reviews on here when we see them. So, that does it. We'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Toodaloo.
Yeah.